Salve Regina, Mater misericordiae, vita dulcedo, estes nostra salve.
The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. When the days for Jesus to be taken up were fulfilled, he resolutely determined to journey to Jerusalem, and he sent messengers ahead of him. On the way they entered a Samaritan village to prepare for his reception there, but they would not welcome him because the destination of his journey was Jerusalem. When the disciples, James and John, saw this, they asked, "Lord, do you want us to call down fire from heaven to consume them?" Jesus turned and rebuked them, and they journeyed to another village. The Gospel of the Lord. Today we celebrate the feast, properly pronounced Thérèse Lisieux, Teresa of Lisieux, as the Anglophiles would say. I like to credit her with arranging the meeting between my mother and father. I won't tell you the whole story, but basically my mother's godparents were praying for the right man for my mother, and with a novena to the little flower. And she always sends a rose as a sign. And on their first date, my father showed up at the doorstep with a rose. He had no idea that his fate would be sealed at that moment. Hence, I exist. When she was dying, she was so insignificant in the community that they were wondering what the Reverend Mother would find to say about this insignificant little girl in her 20s. What would she write in her obituary? What was there to really tell? Teresa's spiritual life hinges on something called the little way. That humility that made her seem quite innocuous in the community, and yet a great saint in the making. Known as the little child, the full title, the child of Teresa, the child of Jesus, and the Holy Face. That's a part of her title that's often dropped off, which is important. We'll get to that. And also affectionately known as the Little Flower. Her little way, which she called her spirituality, was that sanctity doesn't have to be anything spectacular like martyrdom or something like that, but to live in little ways of loving Jesus each moment of the day, little acts of love. It's interesting that a married couple would often say it's the little things that are not attended to that begin to break down in the relationship. So the little way may not be so little as we might think, but according to the world it is, and yet from the little, great things can come with grace. She would also hinge her spiritual life on being in a relationship with God as a little child, dependent on God as a loving and doting Father. Jesus, as a child, needed a mom and dad. We do too. And so the scripture for her in the Gospel of Luke chapter 18 became very, very powerful. Let the children come to me. She identified with that, and she took that as an open invitation to be cherished by God that he would always welcome her. Her spiritual life also included a devotion to the holy face of Jesus, the face of the suffering Christ. And I was noting in the reredos behind me, there's an angel holding the shroud or the veil of Veronica with the face of the suffering Christ on it. Cherish the holy face, she understood. Cherish his face. Draw close to the suffering face of Christ. And how do you do that? I see all forms of my personal sufferings and inconveniences as being linked to Jesus' own suffering face. And as I link my suffering with him, I bring consolation to the heart of Jesus. I ease his pain. I ease the pain of his cross because of my loving devotion. How could God find someone like that anything but irresistible? And yet seemingly a nobody. Except now she's known as a doctor of the church. St. Teresa would go on to say, holiness is not found in such and such a practice. It consists in a disposition of the heart that makes us humble and little in the arms of God, conscious of our weakness and confident of God's fatherly goodness. This was her vision of God, our loving Father. And I dare say this morning she would like to pass that vision on to you.
Regina Celi, letare